All right, everyone, welcome into episode 47 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only sports podcast that talks about both American and Brazilian sports. Novel concept. If you're here, you know what we're about. My name is Nick Hill, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States. And joining me from South Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Yes, how are you this evening? We're doing a day early this week on a Wednesday. We're recording this on October 26th, 2022.
Yeah, I'm doing great, Nick. It's because unusual for me to have a Wednesday off of broadcasting, and today for me is like normally we talk more about the updates on Thursday night football, but today is gonna be Wednesday night soccer because today is the Brasileirao week 34, and and it's funny. Palmeiras might be the champion today without playing, and I'll get in more details in the podcast. But there's a big chance that Palmeiras will be the champions, even though they played yesterday. And Corinthians right now is tied 0-0 versus Fluminense, and Internacional losing 1-0 to Ceará. That results help Palmeiras be the champions because now Palmeiras has the number of points needed to be the champion. I'll get more into that later in the pod, but we have so much to talk about in American sports as well. Is the time of the year? I mean, can't get any better. Late October, early November is like the best time for any sports fan in America. I feel like that's like the nirvana.
Yeah, I mean, we're truly in the thick of it now. NBA and NHL regular season are rolling. Those are the sports on tonight if you need a sports fix. Additionally, we're in the middle of college football. And of course, these guys back behind me, the Vols, have a huge one this week, and I'm going to be there. So I'm very excited to talk about our upcoming game for the beer barrel, even though that's not officially what it's called anymore. Talk about that a little bit later in the broadcast. Also, got a ton of NFL to talk about, including two legends who they might be at the end of their career, might be at the end of their run. We're definitely going to get into the struggles of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers here later on in the program. But first, we got to talk about the fall classic, the late October classic. Although most of the series is going to take place in November, which it just kind of feels odd at this point. To call it the October classic when it really isn't October anymore. It's like not having the third Saturday in October on the third Saturday in October, but fortunately we
It,
had that
it
this year.
happened. It happened 2 years in a
And
row.
yeah, and it was magical too, wasn't it? But anyway, the World Series is upon us. And once again, from representing the American League is the Houston Astros, who are hoping that this time is the time they can win the championship without controversy. And on the other side, the NL coming out of nowhere, the third place team in the NL East, the Philadelphia Phillies, who have gone on a magical run to win the NL pennant, defeat the San Diego Padres in five, to face off against the Houston Astros. And kind of before even I go into that World Series preview, I kind of want to recap the championship series here a little bit because I think for the Padres, right? Just kind of talking about them briefly. I don't feel like there's a lot of shame in this. Now, granted, I understand you had a home field advantage, but you didn't have Tatis. Um, and it feels like the Phillies right now, they're just a team that's on complete fire. And, I don't know. Like, I think if you're San Diego, I think taking out the Dodgers, at least for now, makes this season a success.
I mean, I think the Padres is already ahead of schedule. I think the Padres fans expect the team to be eliminated by the Dodgers. I think if they lost the series to the Dodgers, like if in five, it would be a success. So they went to the NLCS a year early and without their one of their best players, Fernando Tatis. So now the Padres fans are thinking, oh my God, if without Fernando Tatis we went with the NLCS, what we can do with him on the roster. So I guess the Padres fans they are sad, but they're hopeful. So that's funny. I feel like, and we're gonna get to the ALCS, but the difference between the Padres and the Yankees, the fan feeling about this loss, is so different. The Padres fans are hopeful. I feel like they're like, we have years ahead of us because we have such young core talent that we can make the playoffs many years to come.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right about that. I mean, obviously, you got to remember San Diego. This is their only pro team left remaining, so all of that city support is going to be behind that team. And I feel like building in LA, right? Because LA was the city that stole your NFL team. And that obviously meant a lot to those folks. And I know obviously losing to Philly in 5 was tough, but at the same time, it just feels like right now with the energy that they have in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park, that was going to be hard for any team to beat this Philadelphia team right now. They reminded me so much of Atlanta last year. You got the pitching that's on fire. You have that batting lineup that's on fire. It just seems like that Major League Baseball has become a sport you where it's all about that one team that gets hot in October. And right now, this team, the Houston, or not the Houston Astros, the Philadelphia Phillies, are that team. But I think the team that everyone is really focusing on right now is the New York Yankees. Getting swept. I mean, this is gotta remind this team had the best record for the majority of the year in the AL. They looked like they were a team that this could be the year the Yankees get back to the Fall Classic. You had Aaron Judge hitting 62 home runs, and you got swept by what a lot of your younger fans, especially now, are calling your biggest rival. Like, remember, we had our friend Bruno on, and he said how for his son, the Astros are the biggest rival to him because the Yankees seem like every year now they run into Houston and they can never beat them. And this year, you got swept by the Houston Astros, the team that Yankees fans have been saying, "Oh, they cheated. They stole a ring from us. They prevented us from winning a ring." But over and over and over again, they cannot beat the Houston Astros, and it's just they own them. They have their number. I don't know what the Yankees can do now outside of just this is like a psychological thing. I mean, I understand coming from a Balls football fan of what it took to overcome a long losing streak to a team, but the Yankees now find themselves in that position.
And before I get to Major League Baseball, quick update: Fluminense just took a lead with Argentinian striker Reman Cano, corner from the right side. The ball deflected. He wasn't inside the penalty area. Free scored. Fluminense ahead 1-0. If those results kept, Fluminense and Ceará win, Palmeiras will be the champion. Just a quick update from Brazilian soccer. But in terms of the New York Yankees, I feel like New York Yankees need players that have been champions. If you look at the core of the Yankees, like the main players, there's not one player that been a champion. I know that Aaron Judge is a young player, but you have Giancarlo Stanton, who I know he's a good hitter and he's a really good baseball player, but he's not like a champion player. You know, Houston Astros want a player they acquire and brought some like experience and like winning mentality, like Justin Verlander. He knew how to get those wins. He felt that. So I think the Yankees need to get players that used to winning, used to be on the World Series. That for me is one issue, and the other one
Yeah.
is a lot of analytics. Like Aaron Boone seemed paralyzed by analytics, and, and I feel like the Yankees need more manalytics, as Colin Cowherd said. They need more field decisions, not number decisions.
Well, Hal Starbrenner has already decided he's going to bring him back. So a lot of Yankee fans are very upset with that decision, as they should be. I mean, this dude, you have one of the most talented rosters year in year out, and as you said, analytics only get you so far. Really, as a baseball team, you should only really use analytics heavily if you are at a disadvantage from a talent standpoint. But if you have the talent advantage, you should go out there and go out there and just play ball. I mean, these guys have been playing baseball since they've been little kids. Just go out there and let them play. I mean, at least to me, I'm not an expert baseball analyst here, but I mean, it just seems like it'd be. I know it's not simple, but that's just the way I would kind of see it as the Yankees. And now there is a fear amongst some in the Yankees nation that Aaron Judge might leave because there is a quote from Andy Martino of Sports New York who said more than one player has told his agent this week that playing at Yankee Stadium last weekend was an unusually brutal experience. It was hard to believe that for many teammates that fans booed Aaron Judge. And people are like talking about the Yankees fan base is entitled and I feel like they should be winning these championships year in year out. I mean, you think about it, like look at Alabama fans for example, right? They lose one game, they want the coordinator's fired, they want this player benched, that player benched. Um, do you think that the New York Yankees now it's a brand where it's not so simple to win a title? Because think about when they won most of their 27 titles, they were in the days before really modern baseball, right? Before the days before it was even on television, and now the New York Yankees, um, while the fans still have the expectation of we should win the World Series every single year, the
And
player might not want
it,
all that pressure.
it's so funny the way you described the New York Yankees sound exactly like the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys and the Yankees are so similar. Both are they are like the biggest brands in American sports by far. Both in their sports. Both are run by their family. The Steinbrenner family runs the Yankees, and the Jones family runs the Cowboys. They were both really successful in the '90s. The Cowboys were early and middle '90s, and the Yankees were more like the late '90s, early 2000s. And both are paralyzed by the past. And I know the Yankees had the 2009 World Series, but if you take out that, they're basically the Cowboys that has not been to the Super Bowl in almost 30 years, and the Yankees, they haven't been to the World Series in 13 years. So it's it's so there's some similarity between both organizations.
And would you
And
put the Lakers in that category too? Because I know they won the title back in the COVID year, but I mean, to me, I don't think that championship was worth as much as other championships because that was in the bubble. You didn't have to go on the road at all. Um, if it wasn't for that year in 2020, the Lakers have been horrible and they're 0-3 now. I think that they might belong in that combo too.
No, I agree with you too. Like, the 2020 was an unusual season because if you think about it, the NBA was the only sports league in America where they basically play their season with no crowds and the fans did not
Well, I mean,
inflect.
there's NHL too. That had their bubble.
Ah, that's true. But but NBA, I feel like yeah, but 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 in terms of that, like COVID, of course, COVID year was different because veteran players took their rest and they were like more prepared for the playoffs. And when all their players are like equally rested, like being like experience counts, and the Lakers had LeBron and AD already like fully ready and rested. But if you take out that year, that's true. The Lakers had all sorts of drama. They're run by the Bus family, who go coach after coach. Trying to bring like juicy players. Like if you think about it, the only thing the Cowboys I think are different from the Yankees and the Lakers, they don't try to bring like the biggest star brand. Like the only thing that Jerry Jones does different is like like if the main stars of the Cowboys like found through the draft, like Zeke and Dak. But the Lakers and the Yankees try to get all those juicy players like Stanton and Garrett Cole for the Yankees. The Lakers, LeBron and AD. But they I think they don't quite like have modern way to run it to get the not only to the title but like getting to the finals, getting to the World Series, getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I also got to wonder too if you're bringing in all these players who are effectively mercenaries. You wonder if it causes them not to have the same buy-in. Like, there's another quote here in 20 from Brian Hotch on the radio station W Fan in New York. In 2017 and 2019, after the Houston losses, I saw CC Sabathia and Brett Gardner crying. This time around, players in the clubhouse were just like, "Wow, they smoked us." I don't think the heartbreak was there in the clubhouse compared to 17 and 19. It also reminds me too of a similar situation that's going on with Texas A&M. You remember, Texas A&M had the number one recruiting class last year. They were like supposed to be all world, challenge Alabama for the SEC West, and now they're 3-4 and just lost to South Carolina for the first time. And you have to wonder. And Josh Pate made this point on a show yesterday about A&M. You got to wonder when you decide to skip over people who would be all in 100% heart on a team, whether that's in um, any sport, in college football, baseball, whatever. And instead, go for the most talented player, and that you might be sacrificing the heart, the emotion into it. And when things get tough, because no matter how good you are, you're going to face adversity. Um, you could have results like this where you get swept, even though from a talent perspective, you should not be swept.
Yeah, I think, and probably, and oh, go and Alice in the Middle's watching us here in Americana, always cheering for the Vols.
Go
Like
Vols.
he, and I got two more Vols fans in Brazil, Alice on the Meto and Pedro Henrique. They asked me
Most
about the
popular team in college football. Let's go. Most popular team in college football in Brazil. Let's
yeah,
just spread the movement.
Retiring fans. I have myself, Luis Enrique, Felipe Michalski, now Allison and Pedro Enrique. We are getting there. We are one fan at a time. We are increasing our fan base of the Vols in Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, just think about how amazing that is. The fact that these Vols, these guys playing up here in Knoxville, Tennessee, we've got fans all the way down there in Brazil, and Gustavo Tomazeli is going to be the leader of the Vols Brazilian fan
Oh yeah,
club.
I'm the organized fan base called Vols Brazil. Yeah, and it's so funny. Like I was talking to my friends, they were like very emotional on the Alabama day. So here, the Vols fans in Brazil, they really care about it. But back to
It's
the
amazing.
point of the Yankees. I think this Yankees generation, it's sad to say they're talented, but they're not gonna be a very I feel like they don't have the winning component. They are players they don't have that component of like winning. I feel like it's gonna be the really talented team that did really well on the regular season. They've been to like six straight postseasons, but at the end of the day, they can't get the job done. And as sad as said, the Houston Astros, they might they cheated cup in 2017, but the other times they didn't, and they always find a way to defeat the Yankees. It was funny. Game 4 tickets of the ALCS for $20, and I was so jealous. I was like, "Give me those tickets!" Imagine even though you knew the series were done, like you're still watching the Game 4 of an American League Championship series. It's a big deal, at least for me.
I
But
mean, leaving a playoff game early is just bush league. Like
no,
how many
it's
how many
disgraceful.
times you get to see how many times you get to watch your team in that type of environment? Like, don't leave that game early. I
Yeah.
understand if you leave a regular season game early, but not a postseason one.
Oh, definitely. And I felt for those fans. Like I imagine so many Yankees fans probably when they saw those tickets dropping to $20, probably a lot of them bought tickets because they knew that it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to watch their beloved Yankees on that big of a game, uh, on a price range they could afford. Probably those were the ones who cheered the loudest and stayed through the whole game because they knew, even though they kind of knew the season was done, they knew that was one in a lifetime opportunity, and they care about it. I bet there were people on Sunday on Yankee Stadium who, when they saw the tickets drop to $20, bought as fast as they could, and they stay in the stadium the whole game cheering for the Yankees. I bet, because here in Brazil it happens the same. When you increase the price of the ticket, you increase the expectation of that fan who went there, because the more expensive the ticket is, you expect more. So people who were on Game 4 watching that game probably were cheering more, was try to help the team more than like fans on Game 3 that probably those are the ones who booed Aaron Judge.
Yeah, I mean that just seems like a really terrible move to do that. I mean, a guy that has carried you all season, to boom there at the end. Look, I know obviously the series was rough, and we're definitely going to get to how good the Astros are here in just a moment. But I mean, if he walks, he walks, and maybe Yankees fans will think twice about booing him, because I don't know how many Aaron Judges you're going to be able to find, even if you're the New York Yankees. But
And
anyway,
He's
Right.
going to be a hot commodity in the free market. He's going to be the teams are going to try to get him. The Dodgers, the
Yeah.
Mets, even the Giants.
I mean, this free agency offseason is going to be insane. Him, Jacob DeGrom. I mean, there's more names beyond that. Of course, as a Braves fan, I'm circling DeGrom because there's a lot of talk about him maybe going to Atlanta, and that would be just amazing if we could do that. Um, bolster that starting pitching core, which is already very, very good. Um, and I think perhaps we need some more depth at certain positions after what happened against the Phillies. But they are just also a year removed from the World Series championship, so you obviously keep that core intact, make some changes, and you'll be right back out next week or next year. But speaking of the World Series itself, Philadelphia, Houston, and to me, it is kind of interesting. Kind of ask this question: who needs a championship more? Because it feels like Houston, right? They do have their title from 2017 that they won over the Dodgers, but 2019, they lose to an upstart Nationals team that came out of nowhere. Last year, they lose to the Braves, who struggled out of the gate and kind of came out of nowhere to win that one. And people still see their one championship for 2017 as tainted. You cheated. So no one really, a lot of people don't see the Houston Astros as winning a legitimate championship as of right now. And they have been dominant for this postseason. They haven't lost a single game. They were 3-0 against Seattle, 4-0 against New York. Meanwhile, Philadelphia, probably their star player, Bryce Harper, he's never won a World Series. This is his first time in the World Series. Think about it. He leaves Washington to the Nationals the next year, go on to win the World Series. And now he has the opportunity to match that. And I think if he never did, it was going to harm his legacy. But now this is a legacy-defining moment potentially for Bryce Harper, kind of like how last year was legacy-defining for Freddie Freeman. Who needs this more? The Astros or Bryce? Because obviously I know it's a championship, so everyone wants the title. But for the long-term legacy, who needs this title more?
Ooh, boy. First, I think as overall the American League needs this title because since the cheating scandal was revealed, the NL is 3-0. The Nationals, the Dodgers, and the Braves, got their titles. So and all of them versus and that opportunity was the Astros was involved. So even since the was revealed the Astros cheating scandal, the AL lost to the NL at 3-0. So I think the Astros winning will break the curse not only for them but for the American League. But in terms of like player needing the title, definitely Bryce Harper because you know when he left the Nationals and the Nationals got the World Series, it seems like look, the big talented player left the team and the team won the title, so he's not that big of a deal. So he needs to prove that, oh yes, I'm a big deal. I can win a championship. So I think for as an individual, they need a title. Definitely Bryce Harper, but I think the Astros winning another title will cement their legacy and more like maybe a dynasty because definitely the Astros in the American League has been a dynasty, but the past 3 years, as I discussed, they can get the job done in the World Series, especially after the cheating scandal was revealed.
Yeah, I mean, this is, huge for the Astros. And I feel like this might be the best Astros team that we've seen so far in this dynasty. To go 7-0, and they have a shot, right? Maybe to sweep this. I think that's not an unrealistic outcome in this situation to see the Astros see the Astros uh, sweep the Phillies.
No, I don't
But
think that's going to happen. I think
I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm not saying it's impossible. Uh, but I think the Phillies, though, they're going to have some things go their way, right? And I think it's particularly the defense and pitching that would concern me if I'm the Phillies heading into this game. Because of what the Astros have on offense, their pitching staff's going to come out and perform. you got to find a way. Obviously, you got to have guys like Aaron Nola and Max Wheeler. They're going to have to go, or Zach Wheeler. They got to go out there and be lights out when in their starts. But the bullpen is a concern in this game in this series. I think the Astros definitely have the edge there, and I think also defensively, you got to contain the errors because all season long the Phillies were very defensively prone. Now they've really cleaned it up during the postseason, but that team is still there, and you just better hope it doesn't rear its ugly head in this World Series.
Yeah, I agree. I think, in terms of pitching matchup, of course, I think the Astros have, more advantage, especially have more experience. Justin Verlander has been playing terrific. But I think the Phillies is more like the Phillies remind me a lot of the Braves of last year. Came out of nowhere, having one veteran player who wants to prove that he can be a champion. Have nothing to lose. Again, there's the team of the American League. So the Phillies remind me a lot of the Braves last year.
Oh, very much, absolutely. And I think for Dusty Baker too. I mean, this is a huge for him as well. It's like he's been a heavily maligned manager over the years, but getting this one would be huge for his legacy as well.
Yeah,
I just
because Dusty Baker has took over a lot of teams that a lot of promise everybody, expect them to win that they couldn't. The Giants, the Nationals, and now the Astros. So if he lose this World Series, his legacy will be like a good coach that can never get the job done, even with a talented team. 3 times, not once, not twice, 3 times.
I know, and it's just been a long series of losses for Dusty Baker. But if we want to get to the prediction part of this, I think this is the time for Baker. I think this is the time for Houston. Because I feel like obviously outside of Nola and Wheeler, right, being amazing in their starts, and I think they'll go out and they'll play well. But you got to have more than that, and you got to have guys like Nick Castellanos, who everyone knows from the meme, but obviously if he goes out and performs in the World Series, he'll be known for more than just that. And I hope for his sake he does, right? Because I want Nick Castellanos to be known more than just the guy that hit the home run when the guy slipped up and said the slur on air and then had to apologize for it. But I'm feeling Astros in 6 here because man, if the Astros lost, I mean think about this: if the Astros lost this series, that means we would have lost 3 World Series to 3 different NL East startup teams. And I think if you're the Astros, you're looking at this series. If you're an Astros fan, and you're thinking we can't let this happen for a 3rd time, losing to a random NL East team that came out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I feel like the Astros are gonna get it done this time. Astros in 6.
I'm gonna be bold. I think it's gonna be Philly in 7. I think Philly has the juice. Philly has the moment. Philly has a veteran player who needs to prove. Give me the Philadelphia Phillies in 7.
And I wouldn't be shocked. And if that happens, then man, the Astros will have missed an opportunity to be a dynasty. And they might have already missed a dynasty bus, but I feel like if you're going to still have a shot at the dynasty, you got to win it this year. Because if you lose it and have lost 3 World Series in 4 years, that ain't going to cut it. Then you're just Buffalo. You're the Buffalo Bills from the 90s with a title that is tainted.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they'll be worse than the Bills because even the title that you can claim, it will be a huge asterisk over it.
Exactly. This one is huge. I think the Astros are built to respond. Alex Bergman's got to have a huge series. Carries, of course, you got Verlander, you got Framber Valdez. You get so many big time players. Like Jose Altuve. Those guys have to deliver in these big moments. Because remember, last year they didn't. The Braves showed up. The Hetty Freeman, among others. Of course, you had Austin Riley. You had Dansby Swanson. You had God. My name is his name is blanking on me. The guy who hit the free run homer in Game 6 to I'm not let's see Braves Astros Game 6 because Because I remember he hit that thing out of the park. Soler, Jorge Soler. Just so many,
Yeah.
and that was the thing too about the Braves. We had so many unsung heroes come through uh, and help us win that World Series. So for the Phillies, you're going to need that, and they certainly could. So I mean, no outcome would necessarily surprise me here. I feel like Houston's going to win it, but we'll definitely have to check in this time next week and see where the series is at if it's still going. It starts on, I believe, Friday, if I'm correct.
Friday in Minute Maid, in beautiful Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas. I've been there. It's a beautiful stadium, state of the art. I like when they score the home run. They have the choo choo train, the train that every time they have a home run, it's so nice. And probably by this time next week, probably it's gonna be by the decisive game. It's gonna be because the game 5 is on Wednesday. So probably we're gonna be wrapping game 5 next week.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see the atmosphere in Philadelphia for 3 through 5 because that's going to be wild at Citizens Bank Park. I mean, the Philadelphia fans are going to show up and they're going to be nuts. But anyway, we'll keep you posted on World Series. Let's get into some NFL here. And I think the storyline from Week 7,
Oh,
Tom
first of all,
Brady.
you won the week 7
Let's
predictions,
go. Oh, what was the final tally there?
11-9.
On a roll. I'm on a roll. I don't know what's the season total overall right
I
now.
have to recheck the 2 games that you got. The advantage over me was the Steelers over the Dolphins and the Giants over the Jaguars.
All right, that sound. Yeah, I think I picked. I think it was Dolphins over Steelers was the.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
got the
So
Giants over the Jaguars.
yeah, and of course Jags just made a pretty big move themselves, getting rid of James Robinson, Travis Etienne. He is RB1 now, so big news for fantasy fans. But Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, man, the father time has caught up with them. I feel like, and it's just these two teams, the Packers and the Buccaneers, are just not fun to watch right now. They are terrible. They're stuck in the mud, and they're limited at quarterback, which is really shocking to say when you see Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, and you just got to wonder: is that era done? Is there any way we can get those two back to an elite playing form?
I think Tom Brady should took a lesson from his rival Peyton Manning and retired when he got the championship in 2021. I think that was the perfect time, leaving the sport with a title. Then you cannot get any better than that. Then you be like, I won, Super Bowls with 2 NFL franchises. I won in my 40s. That I think would be perfect. But I understand Tom Brady because he is addicted to football. That's why he became this so unbelievable quarterback because he is, I think, addicted to the sport. So it's hard for him to leave. Look, I don't know the details about the divorce, but I feel like pretty one of the main factors was his unretiring earlier this year. But he wanted to play it one other year because he felt health wise he was ready, and he doesn't want to leave the sport. The adrenaline.
Yeah, and the thing about that is he didn't have to leave the sport. I mean, he was gonna be, or he's going to be, the lead commentator on Fox Sports when he retires. Like he's gonna be around the game, like Tony Romo is, and Tony Romo has been phenomenal as a commentator. And Peyton Manning, he gets to do his Manning casting with his brother, and
And he
he's
does
still
great
around
as
the sport of
well.
football all the time. Exactly. Like you don't just leave football just because you don't play anymore. I mean, it was obvious last year he was starting to decline, and now it's very obvious. And I don't know. It's kind of a shame to watch. I mean, it's not that they're just losing; they're losing to the likes of the Carolina Panthers, who are tanking right now. I mean, they're getting rid of everybody. I mean, Christian McCaffrey going to the 49ers, among other pieces. Robbie Anderson to the Cardinals. They're probably going to trade more. the Titans should get in on that. I'll with DJ Moore, but man, it's rough to see. And Aaron Rodgers not doing much better. I don't think it's as much as his fault necessarily because they have no receivers. Their best receiver is Alan Lazard. I mean, that just tells you everything. They wouldn't pay Devontae Adams, and partially, we discussed this last week. It's because Aaron Rodgers won't take a pay cut like Tom Brady will. So I don't know. I don't. I just feel like for both of these guys, they're getting close to the end. I feel like that we're not going to have them for much longer in the NFLs. So hopefully they have some bounce back games. We'll see them have some great games every now and then. But in terms of consistent greatness, I think it's done.
I think for the Aaron Rodgers, it's way sadder because Tom Brady got all the titles that he could possibly got as a quarterback. He played he not only got a title for one, but for two NFL franchises, and he understood the game. And he's older than Aaron Rodgers by a significant margin. Things like what, 7 years, which is a big margin. So Tom Brady is more about stubbornness, and both are about stubbornness. Tom Brady is more the stubbornness of I don't want to leave the game, even though my body's in full decay because I'm in the almost in mid 40s, and I'm probably want to stretch as long as I could. Like Peyton Manning at the end probably can is not as good as in the past, but Aaron Rodgers probably still has talent and still has health, but it's more about understanding the game is different now. You have to earn less to have a more talented team. That you cannot complain about not having veteran wide receivers, but at the same time be one of the most expensive and the highest paid quarterback in the league. It's just in today's NFL they don't match.
Right, and it's just you know even you got to have the talent and you got to have the pieces around you. I mean, just look what's going on with Russell Wilson in Denver. I mean, yeah, I don't think he's fallen off a cliff necessarily, but he has no line. They've put so much money in him, they don't have an offensive line, and he's getting killed back there every single game, along with the terrible coaching decisions that we're seeing with the Denver Broncos. Look what happened to Matt Ryan. He has the worst receiving core that he's ever had. I mean, have with the Colts. I mean, you got Michael Pittman, who's pretty good. Alex Pierce, I think, has potential as a young receiver. And he's done so bad, he's getting benched through 7 games, So it's crazy. All those quarterbacks we grew up with in the mid 2000s, they're kind of beginning to exit stage left,
And if you take a look in the division, the head of the divisions is basically young quarterbacks from even NFC West. Geno Smith is it is like still not old, but younger than Jimmy Garoppolo and Matthew Stafford. Everybody thought Kyler Murray would be taking the lead, but if you see, especially in the AFC, you have the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar, you have Josh Allen and the Bills, and even the second place Jets and the second place Bengals have young quarterbacks.
Yeah,
You have
kind of bringing up those standards. I think it's about time of that year where we should start paying attention to the standings because we're almost halfway through the year. And if you had told me this is what they would have looked like, I wouldn't have believed you. I mean, you got Seattle in first place. Of course, both of the New York teams right now would be wild card teams. The Titans are somehow 4-2, and yet they've scored only 115 points all year. I mean, it's just kind of crazy what we're seeing. I mean, what do you make of these standings so far?
Better than the Colts. Colts at 113.
Yeah, oh yeah, Jacksonville has the most points out of anyone in this division. 155. I mean, let's see. Denver only has 100 points.
The least.
Through, what is that? 7 games? That's
the least in the AFC with Russell Wilson. They're in the bottom in the AFC.
So 7 times. I'm trying to do math. 7 times 12 is because 7 times 11 is 77 is 84. So that's 7 times 13 is 91. That's a little bit over 14 points a game that Denver's averaging. 14 points a game. I mean, that is just atrocious.
I mean, that's my biggest surprise of the season so far is how bad the Denver Broncos is. Because, like, last season, they were an okay team with Drew Lock.
I know that, and you could tell they had potential, and that's why we thought when Russell Wilson went there that they were going to be a contender. I thought they were going to have a chance to go deep in the playoffs. I think in my preseason bracket that I made with the software, you can pick every game. I had them in the AFC Championship game. How foolish was that? I picked the Denver Broncos to go to the AFC title game, and they're not going to be anywhere close to the playoffs because they can't score.
And I think Nathaniel Hackett is done because if you have to sacrifice, they're gonna sacrifice the coach because now they got Russell Wilson. They have to make this puppy work. They have, they sacrifice so much, especially a lot of cap space. They have to find a coach that Russell Wilson can feel comfortable playing with. And that's funny. Everybody was pointing fingers at Pete Carroll. They're like, oh, he's a defensive coach. Russell Wilson will be better with the offensive coach. Doesn't seem like it. Geno Smith is thriving in Seattle.
Yeah, and when you look at that, the NFC right now, Tampa Bay, I mean, they're still in the lead, right? We're talking about them struggling, but the Falcons are right there. They're tied for that division lead. The Panthers, even though they're tanking, they're only a game back. Like anyone could win that division. Anyone could win the NFC West. Of course, right now, my pick to win the West would probably be the Niners because of what they just added. And I think overall they still have the most talent out of any team in that league. But even though I feel like overall, and I'll say this, I feel like so far the NFL's product hasn't been anywhere close as exciting as the college football so far for this point in the season. We're going to have some very entertaining division races down the stretch, and every single one of these divisions. Well, I mean, even KC, I mean, they're only a game ahead of the Chargers. Like the Chargers are right there. The Buffalo Bills are only right now a game and a half ahead of the Jets. I mean, no one has gone away. Even the Eagles, the only undefeated team left. Only a game behind. Yeah, Giants are right there, and the Cowboys are right on their heels. And there's going to be so many storylines here. And for a lot of teams, I really, outside of maybe like the Detroit Lions, maybe, and like the Houston Texans, no one's season is truly over yet. So, I think it's gonna be quite interesting. But it feels like right now, we're heading for a Chiefs Bills AFC title game, and whoever wins that game will probably win the Super Bowl. It just seems like that's where we might be heading.
I mean, don't count the 49ers and the Rams, and we're gonna talk about the game in our predictions because they're gonna face each other. But I think even though, and I don't think the NFC East is gonna be in the Super Bowl, even though 3 out of 4 teams are with 5 and plus wins. I don't think the NFC East is gonna be in the Super Bowl. It's gonna be from the NFC West.
Very good. And of course, you got the Vikings right there at 5-1, although they got smoked by the Eagles in week 2. And when you look at their wins for the most part, I mean, they're going to Miami. I know that was a good win, but I mean, they didn't have Tua. They kind of snuck by the Bears, snuck by the Saints, snuck by the Lions. I'm not that impressed with Minnesota, but they are 5-1, and your record is what you say that you are. Let's get into some of these picks. And we can talk more about the teams as we go through.
And just to finalize the topic you brought up, Brady and Rodgers. I think Brady's going to be the playoffs, but I don't think Rodgers is going to be the playoffs. And how much of a failure it would be if the Green Bay Packers cannot make the playoffs? Not saying, not winning the division, but not even making the wild card.
I mean, think about the free. I took that back. I think Mahomes is getting $200 million plus, and he deserves it. He's the best quarterback on the planet right now. But think about 3 of the 4 teams are paying $200 million plus for quarterbacks: the Broncos, the Packers, and the Browns. None of them might make the playoffs this year. So because the Browns might be too far behind by the time Deshaun Watson comes back to make a run. And of course, we see the Broncos are a disaster, and the Packers have no weapons on offense outside of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. But that doesn't help Aaron Rodgers that much. So it's a disaster. But all right, let's get started here and finally get to pick a Thursday night game that's not happening. So we don't get influenced by what we've seen so far. Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Lamar Jackson versus Tom Brady. Can Tom Brady right the ship at home against Baltimore?
I mean, if they can win this game, I think they probably, are going to take control of the NFC South. But the Baltimore Ravens, they are, on a roll. They got a good win last week. I still not convinced enough that Tampa Bay can figure out their O line is not as good as in the past. That's why Tom Brady's so frustrated. You can see on the sideline yelling at players because Tom Brady always had good O lines because he's not a mobile quarterback. So I think give me the Ravens.
See, my initial thought was taking the Ravens, but this is a short week. These Thursday night games tend to be really weird. And I think, the Ravens, here's the thing with them. They've looked good in every game they've played, but very often they've kind of fallen apart and they've gotten into some really tight games they shouldn't. And even though Tom Brady at this point is nowhere near what he used to be, you don't want to get into a tight game with Tom Brady. It just feels like the type of game that Tom Brady is going to find a way to sneak out. I'm going to go with the Bucs here, actually, even though I think the Ravens are a better team. If this were in Baltimore on a Sunday, I'd pick the Ravens, but in Tampa on a Thursday, I'm feeling the Bucs.
Yeah, I can see that too. That's a good point, And the Bucks always do well on Thursday night games, so that's a good point. But I still take the Ravens. So we'll start with the Sunday night games. The London game, the Wembley Stadium game. Oh boy, I mean, I feel bad for the NFL fans in London. They wait so much to see NFL games, and when they got to see is the 2-5 Broncos and the 2-5 Jaguars.
They did get to see Packers Giants though, and that was a pretty good one. And Viking Saints was an amazing game that went down to the last play. So the London fans have gotten their wait. And let me make sure: is this in London or is this in Germany?
The Wembley Stadium in London.
Oh, okay, Wembley. Okay, I don't know when they're supposed to go to Germany at some point. But I don't know what game that's for. But yeah, here the Broncos, the offense, as we've talked about, it's not there. It's not existent. The defense is good. The Jags, they look like for 4 weeks they might win the AFC South. That has cooled off significantly. They just got rid of James Robinson, but I think that means Travis Etienne will finally get the carries he deserves, the carries that he needs. And the Jaguars will get acquainted with their new home city in 5 years when they become the London Jaguars and they get a win.
Do you really think so? They're gonna be the London Jaguars?
Yep, the London Jaguars. I mean, have you seen Jacksonville? They ain't staying there. London Jaguars get a win at home.
And just for information, you mentioned the Germany game is going to be on week 10. The Seahawks and the Buccaneers are going to face off in Allianz Arena.
Now that'll be fascinating. Geno Smith, for a game between Geno Smith and Tom Brady, where Geno Smith's the better quarterback.
It might have the better record. And who could have believed in the beginning of the season that the Seahawks at week 10 matchup in Germany had a better record than the Buccaneers?
And no one would have thought that.
The NFL might not be exciting at this point of the season, but sure give us a lot of surprises.
Oh yeah, it's been very surprising, that's for sure. And I think for me personally, it's just not as exciting because we get to watch the Tennessee Vols every Saturday and they put up like 50 points a game. And it's so exciting comparatively that every other sport just seems dull now in comparison. But I got to remind myself, Josh Heupel cannot be everywhere.
Yeah, there's only one Josh Heupel. He's in Knoxville.
Thank the Lord he is.
But in the London game, I take the London Jaguars, or still Jacksonville Jaguars.
The London Jaguars. I'm gonna start calling them that just to make the people in Jacksonville mad.
I
All
mean,
right.
people in Jacksonville this weekend care more about the Florida Georgia game than the Jaguars game. I bet.
Oh, I imagine. At least the Georgia fans do. The Florida fans might not be very excited.
I mean, if you think about, I mean, we're gonna get to college football, but if you think about it, when Florida face off, you know, teams in the state of, better ranked team in the state of Florida, they won.
That's true, but I do think there's a difference between Georgia and Utah. But yeah, we'll get in that in just a moment. We got to finish NFL first.
So you got who you got in the London matchup.
London Jaguars.
So let's go back to America in Atlanta, Georgia. The NFC South matchup between the 3-4 Atlanta Falcons and the 2-5 Carolina Panthers. And I mean, the Falcons has been a surprise. And nobody could have predict they would be fighting not only for a wild card, but fighting for the division. They're the same record as Tampa Bay, and they probably could have been better than Tampa Bay if it wasn't that controversial roughing decision.
Right. I mean, and this is the thing. Arthur Smith's a good coach, and we know that from his time at the Titans. I mean, look at the Titans' offense since he's left. I mean, they've fallen off a cliff because Arthur Smith was the architect of that offense. He knew how to maximize Derrick Henry. He made Ryan Tannehill look really, really good. Um, and we miss him dearly in Nashville. For Atlanta, obviously this is not a team that's going to win a Super Bowl, but that's a team that can hover around 500, and that right now might be enough to win this division. The Panthers, yes, I know they won last week, but I think it was kind of a dead count bounce. You know what I mean, Gus? When you have something that's like let's say they're done, but then they come back, they have a little bit of success, and then they fall back down for good. I think that was the Carolina Panthers last week, quite literally. The feline mascot having a dead cat bounce. I think the Falcons are going to win here and get back to 500.
Yes, I think the Falcons. I take the Falcons too. I mean, I feel like the Panthers are, with all the trades they did, and they probably given up on their season, and it just show that the Baker Mayfield, trade, didn't, wasn't, it wasn't probably worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Hail Mary that came up way short for Carolina. They tried to do what the Colts did, but much, much worse than even the Colts did in terms of veteran quarterbacks. At some point, you got to know it's over. We got to blow it up, start over, and draft Hinton Hooker in the first round next year, or whoever they go with, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. We'll see where they're picking.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because they had two talented quarterbacks from the 2018 draft, but at the end, both of them did not, perform what everybody expected they could in the NFL.
I know, right? And the thing is with this upcoming draft class, right? There's going to be so many quarterbacks. Of course, obviously, I named three right there, but there's going to be others like Will Levis is getting a lot of press. You got Anthony Richardson that a lot of people seem to love coming out of college, and there's a whole bunch of other prospects too that could get drafted highly. So if you need a quarterback, this is the year where you're going to want to draft one, and there's going to be a lot of teams. I think they're going to be rushing to the draft to hopefully find their next franchise QB.
Yes, I know. It's so many different types of quarterback. You have, more aggressive ones, more out of the pocket one. So there's, talented and different types of quarterback. But in this game, we both picked the Falcons, right?
Yes, I picked the Falcons.
Yeah. So let's move on to the other game on the 1 o'clock window time. It's the 5-2 Dallas Cowboys and the 3-4, Chicago Bears. Like first, they got a good win over the Patriots, but good God, it was more like the Patriots lost compared to, like, the Bears won. but I take the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are not going to be fighting for the division. I think they can match up well with the Eagles, especially with Dak being back. So I take the Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Bears obviously had a great performance on Monday night, but that was against a New England team that just did not know what in the world they were doing. I don't like the Bears and the Bill Belichick team look so lost. And Justin Fields still is not a great downfield passer. And against Dallas's defense, you got to be able to throw the ball downfield. And the Bears are going to struggle mightily in this one. Give me the Cowboys big.
And speaking of the New England Patriots, they also play at 1 p.m. versus the New York Jets. And probably Jets fans are very excited to this game because in a long, long time, I don't remember the last time the Jets were the favorites. Even though the line is minus 2.5 for New England, the Jets are the favorites to this game. They are on a roll. And the
I'm
Patriots are
stunned
lost.
the Patriots are favorites. How are the Patriots favorites? Did the bets odds makers not see them just lose to Chicago by 20 on
At
Monday Night
home.
Football? Like, how is that line even real? I'm definitely going to bet that line after this game. I mean, that is a ridiculous line. Jets plus 2.5 all day long. Jets are going to. But here's the thing, obviously, for the Jets, that they maybe are counting to losing Brees Hall for the season is a massive loss. He was having an amazing rookie season. And obviously, as someone who had him on his fantasy team, I'm definitely going to miss him because he was definitely one of the best picks I made all year long. So I mean, Brees Hall get better. Hopefully, we'll see you back next year. But they did get James Robinson, and James Robinson is a talent. He was getting misused in Jacksonville. Him and Michael Carter should still be a pretty decent backfield. That defense is still getting better and better. And I think this is almost in the line for Bill Belichick. And wouldn't it be ironic if Tom Brady and Bill Belichick both left after the same offseason? That would be ironic. But like the way he's handling this quarterback situation is unbelievable. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can't bring back Mac Jones, then yank him when you're down 10, put in Zappy, and then rotate it. This isn't college. Like, it's like I'm watching Jeremy Pruitt again. You know, remember when he would like put in JT Stroud? I'm like, okay, I'm done with Jared Garantano. Stroud goes out there, makes one mistake. Oh, we got to put Jared Garantano back in to suck now for 3 quarters. Or God, who was the other guy? Harrison Bailey. I forgot who his name was. I mean,
Harrison Bailey, Jared Guantano, and JT Shroud.
that was our quarterback room 2 years ago,
I'll
and
never
now we
forget
have
this
to hire the
trio.
quarter.
And everybody was
Oh God,
hyping Harrison Bailey. Everybody was like,
Harrison Bailey was the future.
yeah.
Didn't I say after the spring game that Harrison Bailey was going to start over Hendon Hooker? That was a terrible prediction, horrible prediction on my part. Jason Ryer was trying to tell us all, and he reminds me about it constantly, that he said Hendon Hooker was going to be the guy, and he was completely right. I never would have imagined we would gone to this point, but I know we keep on running
He
time
is
about
now
the balls.
in Vegas, but not in Raiders land. He's still in UNLV.
Yeah, UNLV is no good. He's not even starting for UNLV. So, I mean,
He had a good game versus Notre Dame, but other than that, he's only played 3 out of 5 games.
yeah, you know, it is what it is. I mean, he didn't beat Notre Dame, and some bad teams have beaten Notre Dame this year. So, you know, it kind of is what it is, I guess. But anyway, what game are we even on again? Oh, yeah, the Patriots. Give me the Jets.
Yeah, we're both picking the Jets. And shout out to our viewer, Luis Rojas, who is, he is very, we're going to talk about the Brazilian side of it. He's already claiming Brazilian championship. Palmeiras not there yet. There's still 45 minutes to be played in Sao Paulo and Porto Alegre. But so we both picked the Jets in the matchup versus the Patriots. So another AFC East team, the Miami Dolphins facing the NFC Detroit Lions. And I think for this matchup, the Lions, they're everybody expect them to be better. And the Dolphins, I know they came out a big win over the Steelers, but they're going on the road. I think this is gonna be a interesting even matchup.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with the Lions. Their offense the first month of the season was incredible, but what happened to it? You get shut out by the Patriots, who just gave up 33 points to the Bears, who we know have basically no offense. Then you go to Dallas and you can't do anything there either. Jared Goff looks like the quarterback I thought he was going to be preseason. And now, the Lions might be the worst team in the league because they still have the worst defense, and the defense has been terrible all year, but now the offense isn't producing either. So I think now for the Lions, they're just now it's in free fall mode. And the whole hard knocks thing it's all backfiring for the Detroit Lions. I am definitely gonna pick the Dolphins to win this one.
Yeah, I'm picking the Dolphins too. I mean, even though their season looked like it was going to be in trouble after the Tua controversy, I think they might still be fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah.
But another interesting matchup in Minneapolis: the 5-1 Minnesota Vikings versus the 3-4 Arizona Cardinals. The Vikings are undefeated at home, but the Cardinals only lost one game on the road, and it's going to be the matchup between Kyler Murray versus Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and the Cardinals, they looked like probably they had their best game last week. Having DeAndre Hopkins back is huge, and we kind of never really seen this from a Cliff Kingsbury team in the NFL where they started off struggling. And with my old adages with Cliff Kingsbury, he starts off hot and fades. Can he pull off the opposite? And and I was talking about the Vikings earlier, how I haven't been that impressed with them, despite being 5-1. I just have a feeling here that we may see a bit of an upset. Give me Kyler Murray to pull off the win in Minnesota. Give me the Cardinals to win on the road.
Give me the Vikings. I think they're gonna, win at home. They're going strong, and they have to fight this division because winning this division is like taking back because the Green Bay Packers has dominated the NFC North. So winning the division is, and this game is very important. I gotta go with the Vikings. So next matchup is the 2-5 New Orleans Saints versus the 2-4 Raiders. Probably going to be one of the worst games of the Sunday. You know, I think the Saints, they are on rebuilding mode, but the Raiders, what are they? They have so much talented Devontae Adams, Derek Carr, but they are in the bottom of the division.
I actually kind of disagree with you in terms of this being the worst game of the day. I think this is going to be one of the more entertaining ones. I think it's going to be an absolute shootout because both of these defenses aren't very good. And both of the offenses, if you look at the Saints, like they've scored a lot of points. They just also give up a ton of points. Remember a couple of years ago, the Saints had an amazing defense. They do not anymore. So I think this will be high scoring, but I do think the Raiders have more at their disposal right now. I think the Raiders win this one something like 45-35. I think it's going to be that type of game in the Superdome.
Give me the Raiders. I take the Raiders. You take the Saints?
Raiders. I'm taking Raiders.
We both got Derek Carr. The Pennsylvania Derby, I think we can call that, the Pittsburgh Steelers facing the Philadelphia Eagles, the undefeated Eagles versus the 2-5 Steelers.
I'm going to go Eagles here. I mean, the Steelers and Kenny Pickett, he's thrown 7 interceptions so far to just 2 touchdowns. Yeah, he's struggling a ton right now. And, the Eagles defense is going to make his day really, really difficult. I think Jalen Hurts is going to do whatever he wants. I like the Eagles.
And in terms of ticket pricing, is the most expensive game to watch in the NFL this week. Tickets are going for $282.
Yeah.
I mean, the hype is. I mean, imagine this weekend in Philadelphia, you have the World Series happening, and I mean, I know that you have the World Series happening on the next day, and you have the Eagles undefeated. I mean, I cannot even imagine how the city of Philadelphia is feeling right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, in Philadelphia right now, as you said, that they have to be an absolute delirium. I mean, undefeated Eagles, Phillies in the World Series. 76ers haven't gone off to a good start, but we'll see if they're able to turn it around and finally get over the hump when they get to the NBA playoffs.
So we both got the Eagles to win it.
Yeah.
So next one is AFC South matchup. The 1-4 Houston Texans versus the 4-2 Tennessee Titans. Nicholas Hill, our Tennessee Titans guy. How much the Titans needs to win this game in order to keep the division on their control, especially the tanking Texans.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you don't want to lose to the Texans. And remember, they did last year and they still ended up winning the 1 seed. But here's the thing with the Tennessee Titans: we have no offense. We swept the Colts by scoring zero offensive touchdowns in either second half. We beat the Colts last week with not scoring a single offensive touchdown. They have all the offense in the state of Tennessee is in Knoxville this year. There is none in Nashville. Whatever offense we do have is Derrick Henry because Ryan Tannehill is not getting protection. He's getting hit all the time. We have no wide receivers. Letting AJ Brown go, it's looking dumber and dumber by the day. And right now, the number one priority for the Titans right now before the trade deadline, you got to get a receiver in here. You got to find something. Go get DJ Moore. Go sign Odell Beckham. Go do something. This wide receiver room is atrocious and it's unacceptable because I feel bad for our defense. This defense is awesome. Ever since they got embarrassed in Buffalo, they've turned it around and they've helped us win 4 straight games. And we've needed every single one of those performances because the offense can't do anything. Thankfully, the Houston Texans are way worse, even on offense. They're way worse on defense. I expect our Derrick Henry to have a big game here. I don't think we'll just go in there and win by like 30. It'll probably be like a 1-2 score game. But I think the Titans will find a way to win this one, get to 5-2, and I certainly hope so. Because if you look at the upcoming schedule after those for the Tennessee Titans, right? November is a murderer's row of games. They got to go to KC next week on Sunday Night Football. That's not going to go well, I think, for the Titans. Now you come home against the Broncos, who before the season I would have said that was a tough game. I think the Titans can win that game right now. That's going to be an ugly game, though. That's going to be such a low scoring game. At Packers on a Thursday night, going to Lambeau at night anytime is hard. But this Packers team isn't great, so maybe the Titans can win there. Then home against Cincy, obviously they beat us in the playoffs last year. It's going to be a tough one. Then going to Philadelphia, it's going to be difficult. So some tough games coming up. Now, maybe not as hard as it looked preseason, but I mean, if you can go into the stretch 5-2, I think you can get out of it at like 7-5, and then you really are in a good position to win the division, considering the competition that you have, which isn't very good.
Yeah, I think I got the Titans too. I think you should run the division because as of right now they're 2-0 with the division because they got both wins over the Colts. So it looks like the Titans can even sweep the division, and it should because you mentioned some of the other non-division matchups. Oh my God! Fluminense almost scored a beautiful goal, but those matchups are brutal, especially on the road. You have KC, like Kansas City, on a Sunday night game. I know, the last time was a prime time game, Titans and Kansas City in Kansas City. The story was happy for the Titans, but I don't think that it's going to be another QB throwing a touchdown to himself.
Yeah, I mean, you can't depend on that quite constantly. So you gotta be able to get more consistent offense.
And another thing before we move on, the Titans yesterday announced that the a potential for a new stadium for 60,000 fans. There was an announcement that the team and the city of Knoxville has reached a proposed agreement for a new enclosed stadium, which will be discussed by the Metro Council and the Sports Authority in coming weeks. I don't know if you saw the pictures, but it looks like a lot of like a NFL version of the Battery of Atlanta and the Truist Park. Like a modern, kind of like area of a stadium and like businesses and restaurants around that looks very modern. What are your thoughts on the Titans new stadium?
I mean, I think it's necessary. Now, I mean, obviously, I'm not a fan of having to use public funding to do it, but it's just the nature of the beast with these things. I wish there was a different way that you could do it. Because here's the thing: if you don't give them public funding, there's another city that's going to. Um, but I think for Nashville, it makes perfect sense to do this because Nashville, as we know, is one of the hottest tourist cities in the entire country. When they build this thing, you're going to get Final Fours, you're going to get Super Bowls, you're going to get all kinds of events. The Music City Bowl will probably become a top tier bowl game when you build this stadium. Because right now, Nissan Stadium, I mean, obviously, I like Nissan Stadium, but it isn't a great stadium. You have problems with the turf. It's kind of basic by NFL stadium standards. But when you get this stadium, it's going to fit in with the modern day Nashville. I've been to Nashville several times over the past 1 to 2 years, and every time I go back, there's a new skyscraper there, and they're building 1,000 others. It's a rapidly growing city. It's one of the biggest growing cities in this entire country, and I think the infrastructure is there. And here's the thing: that stadium is going to be occupied basically every night, whether it's football. You're going to have major artists go for there because it's Nashville. It's the Music City. You're going to hold like the CMAs there. This uh, I think, and for a lot of cities, this would be a very hard sell, but I think for Nashville, it makes perfect sense. It makes
No,
absolute sense to do it.
no, and also it bringing up those because what the probably the not only the NFL but the other sports are wanting are waiting is that stadium to be built because NFL and even college basketball and other sports wanted to host their big events in Nashville. Like look how successful the NFL draft was in Nashville, but they
Yeah,
know that Nissan Stadium is not up to par to what NFL expects of a Super Bowl stadium to be.
I think too. Honestly, you could see like the SEC championship game go there every once in a while. I think you'll see a rotation between that and Atlanta because
Yeah,
Nashville is such a tourist town. I think you'd see the Vols play games there occasionally, um, away from Neyland even, just because of how modern that stadium would be. So it's a pretty big deal. And honestly, if I'm Vanderbilt, I try to find a way to play my home games there. Honestly, but it's not like they'd be able to fill it. But I would at least look into it.
and the big question is,
But
do you think the Neyland Stadium could host Titans game while the stadium will be rebuilt?
well, they're building the stadium in the parking lot of Nissan Stadium, so I think they're going to be able to use the Nissan Stadium until this is built. And I think the part of the problem with using Neyland is I don't know if you'd be able to get 102,000 people there for a Titans game like you can with a big time Balls game. So I just I don't I think the Titans will stay in Nashville.
Yeah, like what happened to Atlanta when while they were building the Mercedes-Benz Stadium on the parking lot of the Georgia Dome.
Yeah, yeah, they'll stay in Nissan Stadium.
Yeah, so I really hope that happens. It looks really really pretty, not only the stadium but the area surrounding. But let's keep up with our NFL Week 8 picks. Another interesting game because the Indianapolis Colts hosting the Washington Commanders. So Carson Wentz coming back to Indy. I don't know how the fans are going to react.
But Carson Wentz is hurt.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So,
So
so it's going to be Taylor Heineke versus Sam Ellinger, not Matt Ryan, because Matt Ryan has been benched because he just isn't very good anymore, unfortunately. Which sucks. I mean, for Matt Ryan, right? He always has that 2016 season, but it ended in 28-3. So that's all anyone's ever going to remember about him, which is very unfortunate. But for now, we're going to see a Sam Ellinger is the real deal. Um, and Taylor Heineke, I mean, he played decently well last week. I think, but this will be a defensive game, a low scoring game. But here's the thing: I think they got to find a way to use Jonathan Taylor more for Indianapolis. Like, I understand he's coming back from injury, but they used him way too little last week against Tennessee. They needed to use him more if they wanted to win, and I think they will this week. I like Indianapolis in a close one to win.
Yeah, I like the Indianapolis to win as well. I think the Commanders are the train wreck of the NFC East this year. So, and I
Yeah,
don't. Oh, we both picked the Titans, right? The last
correct. Yeah,
I've been looking, since I started picking the Titans, they're 4-0.
yeah. I know. So we'll keep it wrong. Yeah,
So now I think the best matchup of the week, the NFC West uh, game between the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. Uh, everybody knows that Sean McVay kryptonite is uh,
the Niners.
is the 49ers uh, and their coach. So
Yeah.
uh,
And the Niners have only gotten better now with Christian McCaffrey. Now, I know they lost last week to the Chiefs, but I mean, that was a close game. And if the Niners could have just found ways to finish drives with touchdowns and not field goals, then, that could have been a different game. And now you're going to have Christian McCaffrey fully integrated within the offense. And you think about it, you got two of the most exciting playmakers now. You got Christian McCaffrey, you got Debo Samuel, you have George Kittle. Yeah, you got Jimmy Garoppolo, who is kind of just a so-so quarterback. But with those weapons, you don't even necessarily need an elite quarterback. I like the Niners to go in because here's the thing: the Rams' offense this year is just Cooper Kupp. That's all it is. And Matthew Stafford, he's throwing a ton of interceptions. I think he used up all of his magic last year. The running back room is a mess. Um, I like the Niners.
Kyle Shanahan actually was the person I want to remember. Um, I think the 49ers can win this game, and if they win, they probably are gonna be the contender, the leading contender for the division. So give me the 49ers too.
Yeah. Anyway, what? So I think next would be the game that actually has two teams with better records. The Giants going to Seattle. Daniel Jones versus Geno Smith. And a game that where teams that both would be in the playoffs right now. Can you imagine? I'm starting Daniel Jones on one of my fantasy teams right now, and it's actually a good decision. What bizarro universe do we live in, Gus?
And the Giants are undefeated on the road, so
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
even.
I thought that loss week one to the Giants was bad for the Titans, but now I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, we were really close to beating a team that's 6-1 right now. Like that wasn't as bad of a loss as it seemed like. I mean, Saquon Barkley's been a lot better this year. That defense is really getting it going. Um, the Seahawks, obviously, it's a tough place to play, but this Giants team just has a feeling to them that they're going to be a contender later in the year. I like New York.
I don't know. Give me Seattle. I think Geno Smith juice. Playing at home. Give me Seattle.
Yeah, I'm riding that Giants train.
So Sunday night football matchup. The 3-4 Packers going to New York State in to face the Buffalo Bills, the 5-1. How favorite the Bills are.
And
How
off a bye week, too. The Bills had a bye last week as well.
so they're coming off a bye week. You know, undefeated at home, facing the Packers, who've been on a train wreck. Cannot win any game. They're on a 3-game losing streak, and they actually lost to both the New York teams. That play in New Jersey. So the Giants, the Packers versus New York are 0-2.
Yeah, and they're about to be 0-3 from teams in New York. The Bills are not just going to win; they're going to win big, like 3+ touchdowns. Josh Allen going to put on a show, and he's going to show that he is the new Aaron Rodgers. Um, Josh Allen, Bills, big.
Yeah, I got big Bills as well.
All right, on to Monday Night Football to close it out. We have an Ohio battle, the Buckeye State battle. I think a lot of these fans might be more excited about the Ohio State Buckeyes at this point, but we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, what a disaster. We've talked about this all year. You were taking a risk bringing in Deshaun Watson. Of course, he hasn't even played yet, and the season's already just a complete failure. At 2-5, it's not even going to matter when you bring him back because I think Joe Burrow and the boys, they're starting to get it going. They're starting to get it together. The O-line's starting to play a little bit better. The defense is starting to play a little bit better. I like Cincinnati to win and move to 5-3.
I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna pick the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen, but I mean, it's just Jacoby Brissett is just not exciting to me.
I know everybody in Cleveland thought he would at least keep things, on a 500 level, and that's why he's a backup quarterback. He had the chance to prove everybody that he can be have the starting role, but 2-5 is not gonna cut it. And
That's
Deshaun
correct.
Watson is there preparing, and if the season is done, if Deshaun Watson can go on in a 4-game winning streak, that makes it hard for next season.
Oh, for sure. So it's certainly at least the bar is being. I mean, if you're Deshaun Watson, though, I mean, this is actually probably your best scenario because for a person, there's a lot of people who are against you playing ever again. At the very least, for at least there's people who are willing to overlook all the transgressions. They will appreciate potentially higher level quarterback play if he indeed still has it. But I want to move to college football now because it's time to talk about Tennessee, Kentucky. Of course, you got the number 3 Volunteers. They did not change. Of course, they beat FCS UT Martin last week, 65-24. Pretty much, exactly what you expect. It was 52-7 at halftime. Most points the Vols have ever scored in one half of football. They probably would have scored 100 points if you kept the starters in the entire time. Of course, there was no point to do that. People are making a big deal about the defense getting up 400 yards, but a lot of that was backups. I mean, I'm not that worried about giving up 400 yards to UT Martin because, I mean, most of that was the backups. And, it's no secret that the depth on the defensive side is not very good. But obviously, Kentucky is a bit of a different animal, right? They come into this game, I believe, ranked number, was it 19 heading into this week? If I'm
19,
not mistaken.
19.
Yeah, so you got 19 Kentucky at 3 Tennessee, which I'm very curious how many times in the history of this game that both teams have even been ranked. I need to look this up because it can't be that many times in the history of this football rivalry. Because I know Kentucky hasn't been very good that many times. Of course, Tennessee hasn't been very good in a long time. And I'm just trying to figure it out here. So the last time a ranked team even won this game was in 2007. And the last time Kentucky won this game as a ranked team was in 1977. So I would imagine it hasn't been very often. So this is probably one of the biggest games ever in this series. Obviously, Tennessee, you're 7-0. If you win this game, you have maybe the biggest regular season game ever next week in Athens. I mean, which is crazy in a season of huge regular season games. I mean, the game against Alabama felt like it was the biggest regular season game ever. But if you win this week, you're going to number 1 Georgia, maybe number 2, in a game that's truly unprecedented for Tennessee football in recent memory. Meanwhile, Kentucky, yes, they've had a bit of a disappointing season so far. You were ranked top 10 at one point, but you lost to Ole Miss. You lost Will Levis, so you ended up losing to South Carolina, who now seems like they're turning the corner and they actually might be a pretty good team after all. But for Kentucky, all those years of struggling to Tennessee, losing to Tennessee, you've only beat them twice since 1984. You finally got your first one in Neyland Stadium in the COVID year, so it wasn't even against the full Neyland Stadium. But this week, you're going to get all of Neyland Stadium, and we are going to be absolutely foaming for this one. I remember I was there 2020.
Yeah, you
Jared
were there.
Garantano throwing back-to-back pick sixes. They bring a dog on the field to poop on our field before the game, and then other Kentucky fans decided to run around my Twitter account for hours after the game talking smack about me. I know we won last year, but I'm ready for this one, Gus. I want not just to beat Kentucky, but I want to beat those. I want to beat them bad because they came down and they disrespected our field in 2020.
And
I'm ready.
I'm making a bold prediction. I think Tennessee football is going to be the number one team in the country next Monday. I'm making that prediction.
That's a bold one. And part of the problem with that is, though, if Georgia blows out Florida, they're staying number one. If Ohio State blows out Penn State in
That's
Happy
not gonna
Valley
happen.
this week.
Yeah, Ohio State and Happy Valley always trouble.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's an
think-
interesting prediction.
I think I'm gonna make a prediction, and you can call me on that. Tennessee is gonna be the number one team in the country.
Yeah, the playoff prediction comes out Tuesday. So the first one, of course, the ESPN had a preview show yesterday, which I don't know why they did it, but next week is the actual first rankings.
And we're gonna do our podcast then. That we have to do our podcast while the prediction.
Yeah, we gotta find a way to do it on Tuesday. Definitely gotta find a way to do it on Tuesday. But but definitely when you take a look at just the game itself, right? These are two of the most contrasting styles in all of college football. Think about it last year. The amount of possession. Kentucky had 46 minutes of possession against Tennessee last year. 46. That's the most ever in a football game by any team. And they lost. You kept the ball for 3/4 of a football game and you lost. Because when Tennessee had the ball, they were just that efficient at moving it. And this was last year's Tennessee team. This Tennessee offense is on a different level than the offense from last year. Now, the defense, obviously, for Kentucky is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie about that. They've played pretty well so far. But we'll say this offense. Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick update on soccer. Fluminense just scored again in Itaquera, in here, Corinthians Stadium. Beautiful goal by Germancano. Cross from the left side. He did not even let the ball touch the grass. Kick straight on the Casio's right corner. Fluminense up 2-0 in Corinthians Stadium. Big win so far by Fluminense. Beautiful goal. Germancano, what a striker. So 2-0, quick update on soccer. But, back to the VOLS. And last year's win was, Tennessee got more win because they know how to control the clock better. And and Kentucky wasn't ready for the speed of the offense.
Oh, no, they were not ready at all. And, I listened to Mark Stoops' press conference, and he's like, it's an offense that you have to prepare for from the preseason. So we're going to see if they are truly more ready for this. You got to remember, though, Alabama was giving up like 12 points a game before they came to Neyland, and they gave up 52. So it's a tall task for any defense. If any defense is going to do it, though, is either going to be this week with Kentucky or next week at Georgia. Because if these two defenses can't handle Tennessee, then it's going to be hard for anyone else to. Obviously, we'll have to see if they can. And obviously, my one real concern here, Will Levis, right? Will Levis has not had a great season. If you look at it, his stats have been kind of mediocre. Yes, he's completing something like 70% of his passes throughout this season. So he's completing a lot of the passes because a lot of the passes he has are high percentage plays. He's not throwing the ball downfield like you see Hendon Hooker do on a consistent basis. It's a very methodical offense. He has 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, which isn't terrible, but it isn't what we see from Hendon Hooker. 69.5% completion. But I think Kentucky knows. I think anyone knows if you play Tennessee, the weakness on this team is the secondary. And that does concern me to a bit because obviously Will Levis has the talent to have a big game here. He had a big game last year against Tennessee, and I expect Kentucky to be able to put up some points here. I think the challenge for Kentucky, though, is you got to be able to run the ball a bit. You got to be able to get Chris Rodriguez going. Tennessee does have a really good run defense. And I think if Tennessee can completely cut that off and make Will Levis beat us, we can get an interception or two somewhere along the way. And with our offense, that might be enough, because I think our offense will do what they've been doing all year. I mean, we saw what they did to LSU. We saw what they've done to Alabama. We saw what they did to Florida. And none of those defenses are as bad as they appeared against Tennessee. I just think Tennessee's offense is that good. When you're averaging 50 points a game, you are that good. And I think it's going to be a relatively high scoring one. I think it's going to be something like a 49-38 VOLS. I think Kentucky will stick around in this one. And I think Will Levis will have a really good night. But I think he's going to make a mistake somewhere, because Neyland is going to be frothing. It's going to be a primetime game. And Hendon Hooker, to me, he's just having that type of season where it's just going to be very hard for the opposition to stop him, no matter how good you are.
Yeah, I think Tennessee definitely, has to take advantage of the crowd, because if Alabama, with all the experience with being on a hostile environment, being the top team for the past 15 years, they had fear, players having fear, so that shows the crowd came, and tickets are going for $200.
Yeah, I think I got, so my dad and I are going to the game this weekend, and I got my tickets in the lower bowl, like kind of by point, like, hold on, what side? All right, kind of like right where my finger is back here, like in the lower bowl of the south end zone. I got them for the pair for about $500 right before Florida. So now those same tickets are like double. I would have had to pay $1,000 if I had to win that.
Good investment.
Yeah, I knew back then, all right, this is the game we're gonna go to in Neyland. And I knew I needed to buy them before Florida, because I knew if we won that game, the rest of the tickets are gonna go through the roof. And especially after Alabama, you just knew the tickets were just getting more and more expensive. I knew I needed to, close on them then. So I made the right call there, absolutely. But yeah, I'm excited to be there. I've never been to Neyland Stadium in an environment like this, because obviously, I went to Neyland Stadium in a lot of years where we were not really good. I've been in a lot of empty Neyland stadiums, and I've always wondered what it was like to be in Neyland Stadium with a good football team, with a good Tennessee team, with a fan base that's all the way in. I'm gonna find that out Saturday. I'm gonna walk into Neyland Stadium, a place I've been to a million times. I'm going to experience something I've never experienced there, and it's going to be amazing. So I hope the VOLS deliver and get us to 8-0 for the first time since, well, I mean, at this point, every time is since 98. So, because we're 7-0 for the first time since 98. Let's get to 8-0 for the first time since 98.
I mean, Nick, I don't want to jinx it, and I probably shouldn't say this, but you were at the last game Tennessee lost.
This is true. I was the last game Tennessee lost at Purdue.
So
it was actually the last two games that Tennessee lost. If you think about it, I was also at the Georgia game. In fact, the last 5 times I've been at a Tennessee game, Tennessee's lost. The last time Tennessee won a game that I was present for was Missouri in 2020. But there's been a lot of streaks broken this year. We've broken the Alabama streak. Peyton Manning has broken his streak. I can't just never go to a Tennessee game ever again, guys. I have.
I'll be cheering so much for the VOLS because of you. I know I shouldn't brought that stat, but I
wouldn't have thought. I haven't thought about that, but you are completely right. The last 5 times I've been in attendance, we haven't won. But I'm choosing to think this is all destiny. And it's all these streaks. I mean, think about this. We hadn't won against like LSU since 2005 either. We hadn't done so many things. We hadn't been a ranked team on the road, a non-con ranked team on the road since like 2003. We went on the road and beat Pittsburgh. I mean, there's so many streaks that have gone down this year. This is the year where streaks get destroyed on Rocky Top. And the way I've been telling myself all year is you cannot let jinxes get to you, because jinxes aren't real. All right. They are psychological blockers we put in our brains as sports fans to think we can control everything, when fans, we can't control anything. So just to go out there and enjoy it. And that's been my motto all year. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going into Neyland, and I'm going to root for my Vols as hard as I can.
And I hope they win. I'll be
Yeah, I hope
rooting,
they win too. I hope they win too.
and I'll be finally have some time to watch because for the past few weeks, Tennessee games has been on a time that I was broadcasting. So now I'll have Saturday night all good to go, especially after the Libertadores broadcast. To just sit and watch Tennessee play Kentucky and rooting for the Vols. And please send me videos. Please send me
Oh, I
pictures.
will. I'll be sending you some Snapchats for sure because it's going to be wild down there in the South End zone. But anyway, yeah, but it's going to be fun. I'll definitely have to talk about the experience next week because I'm sure it's going to be unlike anything I've ever seen in Neyland. Of course, if we win, we won't storm the field. So I wasn't. Unfortunately, I missed that experience. But that still will be a great atmosphere. But anyway, some quick other college football talk. Probably some of the more embarrassing results from this past week. Miami losing to Duke by 24, committing 8 turnovers. I don't know if I've ever seen a football team ever commit 8 turnovers in one game. Mario Cristobal's first year has been a disaster in Miami. For a team that had ACC aspirations to maybe upset Clemson for the title, they're going to come nowhere close.
Who do you think had a more disappointing season? Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame or Mario Cristobal at Miami?
I think Notre Dame, because here's the thing, Miami was in a bad spot heading into this year, and I think, a lot of people were perhaps overestimating just how much talent was in that Miami team. Cristobal's going to get the team back with a lot of talent. I have confidence in that, at least from a talent perspective. Marcus Freeman, though, the Notre Dame was a top 5 team last year, and they didn't have that much loss of talent. Like, there's no reason for Notre Dame to be this bad. And we're starting to find out, no matter how arrogant he is, Brian Kelly was actually a really, really good football coach. And we're starting to see he's starting to turn the tide now at LSU. LSU's had 2 really good performances back-to-back. They're now in the top 25. And all of a sudden, their game against LSU next week might be for the division because they're tied. Like, if LSU beats Bama next week, they might go on a run and win the SEC West. So, I would say Marcus Freeman.
Oh yeah, I agree too because so much expectation, especially starting on the top. And that Notre Dame debacle remind me a lot of the Florida State 2017, and by the end they almost make the bowl game.
Right, and they could go into a couple years of irrelevance. But speaking of a team that's going to go into a couple years of irrelevance, they don't get it figured out. Texas A&M, and I alluded to this earlier in the broadcast when we were talking about the Yankees. They're 3-4. They had the number 1 recruiting class. They are flowing around all this money. They bring around all this talent from all across the country. They just lost to South Carolina for the first time ever. And they've been playing every single year since 2012, and they just lost to South Carolina for the first time ever. This team has no offense. They do not have an offense. And for the talent they have, that's unacceptable. They're paying Jimbo Fisher, $10 million a year. He has a $90 million buyout, and they can't get anything going because he has an outdated scheme. And I think if you're A&M, you got to have an ultimatum to Jimbo Fisher. You have to hire an offensive coordinator or you're gone.
Oh yeah, and I feel like probably he's not gonna get fired this season because he's gonna make the argument. I have the number 1 recruiting class, so players are gonna develop by the second year. But he's gotta find someone that can coach the offense better than is happening. I mean, they couldn't score against Appalachian State.
Yeah, and of course, with that recruiting class, though, A&M just had 3 freshmen suspended. Did you see that one, Gus, where they had the freshman situation? Say Texas A&M suspends 3 freshmen indefinitely after post-game locker room incident, per reports. So,
I mean, that's what happens when there's so much expectation and so much disappointment throughout the season that heads are gonna collide, and there's gonna be some kind of friction.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. It's just been it's been an absolute disappointment. I think I might go back to what I was saying with the Yankees. I don't know, even if you brought in the number 1 class, with the NIL, how many of these players are actually invested in Texas A&M? Or are they just there for the money? We saw Quinn Ewers, right? He went to Ohio State for $1 million and then bailed to go back home to Texas. So, I mean, you might start seeing more and more of that throughout the years in college football with NIL. Not saying NIL is bad. I still think it's an overall good. People should be able to make money off of what they want. But, this might be a consequence of that. Texas A&M has learned that firsthand. The last thing I wanted to bring up with college football, unless you had anything else you wanted to bring up too with college football, a topic of discussion with the world's largest cocktail party. I know people don't it's not officially that anymore, but I'm calling it that. The world's largest outdoor cocktail party between Georgia and Florida. Should it stay in Jacksonville? Because it seems like all the Georgia fans want to go to a home and home. They don't like having to go to Jacksonville every year. Florida wants to keep it in Jacksonville every year, it seems like. For me, I mean, here's the thing. As a Tennessee fan, to me, it's unfair that Georgia and Florida each, skip out on one road game every 2 years, because we have to go to Georgia and Florida every other year. We have to deal with those road environments. We don't get a neutral site game. But Georgia and Florida, they get to skip out on each other's road stadiums and having to deal with that. And to me, I want to see them go to that. Now, granted, I get the tradition, but at the same time, I think Oklahoma, Texas is the only one truly that makes sense with the Texas State Fair. I mean, what's special really about the Jacksonville location? I don't think it's that special. I really think it's Georgia and Florida should go to a home and home.
I mean, if you compare by both rivalry games and stadiums, like I've been to the Cotton Bowl, and the stadium lives and breathes for the Red River Showdown. The stadium literally best event is the Red River Showdown. I mean, the TIA Bank Stadium is, a home of a NFL team. So there's
Yeah, until they move to London, though.
Yeah, I guess. So I guess if they really move to London, they really have to keep this game, because that might be the only viable football game this stadium will host.
Yeah, it would be. Man, I feel like I'm piling on Jacksonville, Florida a ton today. I didn't come in here with the intention of doing that, but it's just how this one has turned out. But I've never personally against Jacksonville, but yeah, I think that, to me, it seems like I would love to see the Sanford Stadium for Florida. I would love to see the Swamp for Georgia. I think those would be some really cool environments. But speaking of environments, Sanford Stadium next week is going to be insane, regardless, for Tennessee, Georgia. But obviously, we'll talk about that a bit more next week.
I think
can only imagine.
I think Tennessee will be the number one and Georgia will be number two, because Tennessee will beat soundly a ranked team, and I think Georgia is going to struggle with the unranked team. So then
they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle. I don't know, because here's the thing. Anthony Richardson, he's just, to me, it's not consistent enough passing.
I think Georgia will win this game, but it's going to be close. So if that happens, do you think if Georgia win this game close and Tennessee beats by like 3-4 touchdowns the
playoff committee? I think if that happens, yeah, I think Tennessee would jump Georgia. Now, would they be one? Depends on what happens with Ohio State.
Ohio State's going to lose. I'm calling that.
I don't agree with that. I think, if you look at Penn State, Sean Clifford, he does not perform in big games. I do not see Penn State upsetting Ohio State. Now, it could be close, and of course, Penn State's crowd's going to keep them in it for a while, but I don't see it necessarily. Also, honorable mention too, Michigan State at Michigan. Michigan has struggled with the Spartans for a while now, it seems like. But I forget when was the last time they even beat Michigan State. Wasn't it like 18-17? I gotta look this up. Michigan State, because even last year, they went to, remember, they were in East Lansing. Michigan State pulled off that win in East Lansing. And the COVID year, Michigan State pulled off the win. I'm trying to look for all time. Yeah, so Michigan won in 2019, but Michigan State has had their number. So since 2008, Michigan's only won 4 times against Michigan State. This is a huge game for the Wolverines. They got to find a way to win this one. I think they will by a couple of scores.
Yeah, I think they have to make a statement winning this game to be like, we can beat our rivals to make to the playoffs. Because the road to the playoffs, they have to beat the SEC East teams, no, the Big Ten East teams.
Oh, for sure.
And
They've already done the Penn State, and they'll do it to Michigan State. And then, of course, we know what's coming at the end of the year with Ohio State.
so I think I got my top 4 teams in this order on the on AP on Monday, and probably the committee on Tuesday will be Tennessee number 1, Georgia number 2, Michigan number 3, Ohio State number 4.
Well, if Ohio State were to lose like you projected, I would have Clemson ahead of Ohio State.
Oh yeah,
Clemson's off this week, so they could definitely jump ahead. Of course, you got Bama down there at 6. TCU is at 7. TCU is at West Virginia this week. If TCU keeps winning, they're going to get into that conversation. Oregon, they've played themselves back into contention now. Oregon has that 49-3 loss to Georgia. That's going to be hung over their heads. But if they can go undefeated in Pac-12 play and win that title, they might have an argument at the end of the year. USC, they're at 10. They're still in there. Oklahoma State, another team. Of course, they have the loss at TCU, but if they can win out, they'll get a shot to avenge their loss at TCU. They have a tough game this week at Kansas State. Beyond that, I don't know how many of these other teams truly have a shot at this point. Of course, Syracuse, shout out to Syracuse. They're clearly a good team this year. They're way better than I thought they would be. They could have beaten Clemson last week, but the quarterback change for Clemson kind of helped them get over the top. And just at the end of the day, Syracuse just didn't have enough on offense. But I mean, they clearly are a top 15 team. So shout out to the Orange and shout out to Dino Babers.
Yeah, congrats on them. I think, and they're gonna have a big game, hosting Notre Dame, because, who could have thought when the season started, then this game would be between one ranked team and another unranked team, and this unranked team would have been Notre Dame.
Yeah. Also, Saturday night, obviously, I'll be at Kentucky, Tennessee, but I'm very curious to see the result of that Ole Miss A&M game, because Ole Miss, that defense got exposed on Saturday at LSU, and that offense, if the run game isn't going, as if it isn't humming, then that offense isn't going anywhere either. This is definitely a shot for A&M to win a game, but if they lose this game, A&M might miss a bowl game.
I mean, if Texas A&M don't make a bowl game, I don't know if Jimbo Fisher should stay.
So right now, A&M, if they lose this game, so they'd be at 3-5. You get Florida at home. That's a 50-50 game right now. You may lose to Florida. That might be 3-6. At Auburn, I probably would still give you the edge, but that's no guarantee with your lack of offense. UMass, that's a win. UMass is terrible as – oh yeah, they're 1-6 as they always are. But then you have LSU at the end of the season. That's probably a loss. You could lose to Ole Miss, Florida, and LSU and finish 5-7. So that's very much in the cards for A&M. So they got to find a way to win at least one of those games to get to 6-6. They could win 2 of those games and go to 7-5. But the fact we're even mentioning, I mean, it sounds like Tennessee. Up until this year, it's like, oh, how can we get to 6-6, 7-5? That's Texas A&M this year. So then, and for where they were preseason, then that's heavily disappointing.
Oh yeah, Texas A&M is a disappointment of the college football season, definitely by far.
Oh, by far, for sure. Anyway, that'll wrap up the American topics. Kyle Larson won at Miami. We still only have one driver locked into the Final Four. The final round of 8 races this week at Martinsville, a race that wasn't very good in the spring, but hopefully it's a lot better this week. But that's really all I have to say on the NASCAR front.
So back to Brazilian topics. We're currently on the stoppage time in Itaquera. Corinthians losing 2-0 to Fluminense, and was a deserved. Oh my god! And there might be a goal. Oh no! It's the end of the game. Internacional 2-1 versus Ceará. So Palmeiras fans will have to wait a week to claim the championship, because with Internacional winning will be a 10-point difference with still four games to be played by each team. But I think I think Palmeiras fans are happy actually. I think as a fan, Nick, do you prefer to win the title by other teams' result, on the couch, not at the stadium, or winning the title at your stadium?
Win a title at your stadium easily. Um, obviously you take any title you can get, but it feels like having to watch their team do it is sort of anticlimactic.
Oh, very like it happened in the Premier League. I remember a couple of years ago, Chelsea won the title not playing. So I think that's anticlimactic. So probably Palmeiras fans are, you know, happy that they have the chance to win at home next week versus Fortaleza. I I'm excited as well because I'll be covering the game hopefully at Allianz Park. So it'll be probably my second chance to watch Palmeiras winning the championship. I covered them in winning the state tournament back in April. So I'll probably have another time watching Palmeiras be the champion. So, but I think Palmeiras is definitely is going to be the champion. What a performance last yesterday, 3-1 on the road. And do you remember, Nick, that 16-year-old Hendrick that I showed where they play really well on the
Yeah.
youth? He scored not only one, two goals yesterday playing with the
Oh, that doesn't
pro.
shock me. That doesn't shock me. We'll see him in Europe eventually.
Yeah, PSG is already interested in him, but they're only willing to pay 20 million euros. That's bullshit. That's penny. I think Hendrick should go way more. Like he's 16-year-old player who is scoring not only one but two goals on the pros in a game that Palmeiras needed to win to get closer to the title. So Palmeiras had a great performance yesterday, solid performance, especially in the second half. And I know it was between the reserves of Atlético Paranaense. Their head is in Ecuador for the Libertadores Final, but Palmeiras, they got the win, and that's what matters. And the other game that just finished was Corinthians and Fluminense. What a win by Fluminense, 2-0 on the road. Now in fourth place after cup, some consecutive losses. Fluminense now is, won two out of the last three games. I think they're gonna stay on the top four. Very disappointing performance by Corinthians. Corinthians looked washed. In the first half itself, Corinthians had to sub two main players by injuries, Gustavo Silva and Renato Augusto. So it seemed like Corinthians' gas is almost at the end this season. So I feel like this win by Fluminense is very important, and I feel like it's uh, you know and Corinthians, they're gonna fight for Libertadores. They play on Saturday a game that should have been played last Saturday, and it got canceled by some court issues and all that. But I think Corinthians is gonna be Libertadores. But big question now is Vitor Pereira gonna stay? I hope so. I hope he has a second season Corinthians, because then he can go to the market, get players that can play better at his scheme. And I feel like this game is very this like Vitor Pereira staying is a very no very big moment, a very important thing for Corinthians. But he's
Yeah, and
not.
just as someone from outside the soccer culture in there too, it seems like coaches just don't get enough time at a
Oh
lot of
yeah,
these situations. They get just if they don't win immediately, they're gone. So like, you need a year or two, right, to get the players to at least get a
Corinthians
shot.
Corinthians front office and Corinthians president wants to keep him. But he said on his press conference on Saturday, soccer is not everything. He has to talk to his family. and his mother-in-law is a little bit sick. His daughters and his wife are not very big on the idea of moving to Brazil. So I hope he makes this decision soon because Corinthians right now has to start planning for 2023 because obviously I think Corinthians is going to play for Libertadores. So Corinthians has to start planning for next season. What players are going to stay, what players are going to leave, what players are we going to acquire. So Corinthians needs to start thinking about next season right now because after losing Brazilian Cup, any title aspiration was done. Especially now, Corinthians with losing yesterday is now has no chance of winning the Brazilian championship. If they would win, they would at least still be on a title race by still like mathematical chance. Now that they don't have any chance of winning any titles this year. So I think and like remember, Corinthians kept the coach for 2021 to 2022, but they fired the coach after like 5 games into the season, and Vitor Pereira arrived in the in like beginning to the middle of the season with so many important games. So now Vitor Pereira deserves to have a preseason and planning for this upcoming season. But it's his decision. I hope he stays, but nobody knows what he decided.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Just so he can you can get that consistency. I mean, really, in any organization, you need you need the same personnel to stay together over the same amount of time. Like with the VOLS, right? Like a lot of these guys are together for a second year, and we see the step forward. It's like that in every single sport. So hopefully for Corinthians, they keep this coach, and he can get the players he needs to take the next step.
Definitely, because if no, because the fans are like, if Vitor Pereira got a good enough season, because Corinthians was a runner up in the Brazilian Cup, lost 2 penalties to Flamengo, got to quarterfinal Libertadores, lost to Flamengo as well, and went to the semifinals of state championship, lost to Sao Paulo on the road, and Vitor Pereira was still like a month, almost 2 months into the job. So every Corinthians fans are like, I think we can be better next season if Vitor Pereira has more time to build up the roster. So last but not least, Libertadores finals this Saturday in Guayaquil, Ecuador, between two Brazilian teams, Flamengo and Atlético Paranaense. I know, first of all, Comebol, and I'm gonna save this for my hot takes, but still, you know, it's so weird to see two Brazilian teams have to fly all the way to Guayaquil, Ecuador, to play the Libertadores finals. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But I'm gonna go more into my hot take. But those Flamengo's more favorite. Flamengo has been to the 3 out of the last 4 Libertadores finals. Flamengo has been one one final in 2019, lost in 2021, and I think probably is the last final with this roster. I think after this year, I I feel like a lot of players are gonna either leave or retire because it's an old roster. So I think the last chance of Flamengo, and it's like what we discussed with the Houston Astros. If they win this title, we can say they were like a leg, like they dominate, like they build up they cement their legacy into especially Libertadores, winning 2 titles in 3 years. But if they lose, they're gonna be losing 2 consecutive Libertadores finals and only winning one Libertadores finals in 4 seasons with that rich of a roster. And Atletico Paranaense has nothing to lose. Making to the finals was already impressive enough, eliminating current champions Palmeiras. Felipão is a really experienced coach. Even though he was the 7-1 coach in the Brazil World Cup in 2014, he knows how to win those kind of games. Like, he's a coach that can really get the players ready, especially psychologically. I don't know. I think it's gonna go over time. I hope Atletico Paranaense wins, but I think Flamengo's gonna win on overtime.
I don't know. It feels like Flamingo. They have that pedigree, right? They've been in a lot of these championship situations, and experience pays off a ton, especially when you have to go all the way to Ecuador to play this game. You're going across the continent. It's going to be a weird situation. I think weird circumstances favor the team that is more experienced. I like Flamingo to pull off the victory here, and I'll pick him 3-1 in regulation.
Ooh,
I'm feeling like they could go out here and play really well. Actually,
I can
I'm
see that
probably
actually.
wrong,
I can
but
see that actually. If they score first and then Atlético Paranaense has to be the one to be, kind of chasing the result, and Flamengo is a really good team on counterattack, I can see that happening. But I think it's going to be a really even matchup, what Atlético Paranaense has shown in those previous matchups. And I'm going to go straight to my hot take. It doesn't make any sense. Conmebol to make both teams fly thousands of miles to Ecuador to play the Libertadores finals. It's sad because both of those fan bases are going to have to spend thousands of reais to watch this game. And in contrast, Comebol allegedly has been giving free tickets to locals so they can fill up the 80,000 stadium in Guayaquil. So, on one hand, true fans are going to have to pay thousands of dollars to be there close to their team to watch the historical moment. And on the other side, you see local people from Guayaquil, probably a lot of people who didn't know even this game is happening there, been giving tickets away to just fill up the stadium. It just feels unfair to the real fans that are gonna have to stay in Rio or Curitiba watching on like watch parties, but like thousands of miles away to that game.
yeah, I mean, I just don't understand how they couldn't find a different way to schedule this. I mean, I understand you want your big continent event to have big meaning, but if you know there's a chance both teams are going to be Brazilian, then why not have a contingency plan where, like, okay, if two teams are from the same country, then you move the game to that country somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, but I think that the problem is not even that. It's like South America is different than America, different than United States and Europe. Like it's harder to go from one country to the other first, and second, I feel like there's not much interested in other countries, even though it's like a big final of the South American Championship. Like people in Ecuador don't care if an Ecuadorian team makes it. It's like even let's say I know the last two Super Bowls the home team went and won, but before that, even though the Super Bowl it was in Arizona and the Cardinals didn't make it, the stadium was gonna be full, you know. And in Europe, even though this season the Paris Saint Germain didn't make it, Parc de Prince in Paris was full of Real Madrid and Liverpool fans because it wasn't uh, that expensive to make it there. And in Europe and in the United States, the Champions League and NFL is such big brands of sports that fans are gonna go no matter what team are playing. I don't think Comebol and Libertadores are that big of a brand that people, let's say in Ecuador, are gonna care enough to watch two Brazilian teams playing each other.
Oh, for sure. This isn't the Champions League. And I understand they're trying to grow it to that, but I don't know. I think you gotta be more realistic with your scheduling in order to ensure you're gonna have a good crowd at the game. And obviously, all the way in Quito, Ecuador, it's just not gonna be that for this game.
Yeah, it's not even in Quito, the capital. It's in Guayaquil. I know it's a
Oh,
large.
Guayaquil. Okay, Guayaquil. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
even the capital. I know they have a big stadium and they host one Libertadores final in 1998 between Barcelona of Guayaquil and Vasco. And there were even, oh my god, this final is so jinxed. Like this, the country of Ecuador is on a political turmoil, and there is even like some issues with the volcano in the city in the region. And on top of that, there are like rumors of civil unrest, and even there was a TV crew that almost got robbed by like you do a stand up shot near the
Oh
stadium.
my God. Uh, wow. I didn't know that was all going. I mean, I know like Bolivia's having issues, and of course you have Venezuela, But I didn't realize Ecuador was having those issues too.
Yeah, I mean,
God, that sounded so American.
yeah, and and even in Brazil couldn't be made because of the election. So even a Brazilian option, unfortunately, wasn't be possible because of the election this weekend. But it's a big final. I hope it's a good game. As I said, I think Flamengo's going to win in overtime. You said it's going to be on regulation, 3-1. I think it's going to be 2-1 Flamengo in overtime. But it's going to be a great final. Hopefully, the game itself, 90 minutes or even more with overtime, can be an exciting event for South America to enjoy it.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun today. This weekend, I'm very curious to see who comes out on top of this Libertadores, which has been all Brazil.
And I'll be
But for my
broadcasting here on Vida Nova FM radio in Portuguese. But sorry, Nick, go ahead.
yeah, and of course I'll have to comment if I can at some point, even though I don't know what's going on in the games.
Yeah,
Um,
at least you can see the score up down there.
Yeah.
At least you know how the game's gonna go.
Absolutely. And you said this is Saturday, right? Saturday afternoon.
Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time.
I will be tailgating and getting ready for Knoxville. I'll have to comment live from Neyland Stadium. But speaking of college football, that's where my hot take takes me today, and it takes us to Starkville, Mississippi. We have to talk about the Pirate Mike Leach. Now, Mike Leach, once upon a time, was almost the head coach of our Tennessee Volunteers. And I'm really glad at this point that did not happen. And Mississippi State is a weird case. You know, they have a lot of talent. They have a really good team. They're really good at home. But on the road this year, losses at LSU, at Kentucky, and now 36 at Alabama. The same team that just gave up 52 to Tennessee. Mississippi State could only muster 6 points. Will Rogers, 30 of 60 for 231 yards. The team overall only had 62 yards rushing. We think of Mike Leach's offenses as being absolutely explosive. But that's not the case. This team, they don't really throw it downfield. It's very dink and dunk. It's very short passing. And it just it wasn't working against Bama. It just seems like they don't really have a lot of versatility in the offense. Kentucky also really made them pay for that game, for that strategy too. But what I think even makes it worse, right? Because we all know Mike Leach, right? He's eccentric. He comes out and he has really funny press conferences. But if I were a Mississippi State fan, these press conferences would annoy the heck out of me, and almost to the point where they would start to make me angry. Like, he came out after the game last week and said our players were scared of Alabama, just straight up said it, and just was just brutally attacking the players, right? For being scared, for being terrified and all that. And it's not that he's necessarily incorrect in that assessment, but like at the end of the day, you can complain about your players, being scared all you want, but it's still your responsibility to get those players prepared. And Mike Leach going out there and doing a comedy routine and talking about, UFOs at a bigger SEC school, that definitely wouldn't cut it right now. That would definitely not cut it in Knoxville. And I think after a certain point, if he doesn't start winning some of these bigger games, if he loses to Ole Miss again this year in the Egg Bowl, it's going to start to not cut it anymore in Starkville, because the funny Bigfoot quotes, the funny, wedding advice, the funny favorite Netflix show, or your little tidbit about, what rock you garden this week isn't going to work when you're not winning in the SEC. Because in the SEC, all that matters is winning. You can do that stuff at Texas Tech or Washington State, and those people won't care. I mean, those aren't, the fan bases aren't that big. Those are in places in the middle of nowhere. And Mississippi State, Starkville, right? That's also a place in the middle of nowhere. That's not at a top tier SEC team, but it's still an SEC team with expectations and an SEC program that hasn't won a title in the SEC since World War II, 1941. They have not been anywhere close to the SEC title game since 1998. They won a division once in 1998. They lost to the Vols, actually. And if you look at Mississippi State fans, for some reason, they a lot of them seem to be kind of jealous of the Vols. Like you look at Brandon Walker, right? On Barstool, he's constant about how like Tennessee, it doesn't really matter that we're back and whatnot. He's just talking a ton about Tennessee, and I've seen a lot of Mississippi State fans talk about how like it's we can't stand Tennessee, which is weird because we don't blame Mississippi State on a yearly basis. Um,
And when we play, we
but it's
beat
just
them.
kind of
And even Jeremy Pruitt was able to beat Mississippi State.
exactly. I mean, they beat us in 2011, but that was Derek Dooley. So I mean, who cares, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, you had Dan Mullen for 12 years, and you couldn't even come close to winning the division. You haven't beaten Alabama now, and was it since 2007? So now you're Tennessee. You haven't beaten Alabama in 15 years. And I don't know when you're going to beat them again. I, I just, I don't think Mike Leach is going to be anywhere close ever to an SEC championship coach. I don't think Mississippi State is an SEC championship program, and they're going to be forever mediocre with Mr. Leach as coach. But I hope they keep him because, man, the press conferences sure are entertaining. And it'll be hilarious when they lose to Bama by 30 again next year, and when he comes out and makes a million excuses again in the press conference.
And like Mike Leach is the best other team's coach. Like we love Mike Leach in the other team.
Yeah, I wouldn't want him as my coach just because it feels like he doesn't adjust his offense enough. His offense was innovative at one time, but I think even with Josh Heupel, you're seeing Heupel has adjusted his offense a bit since last year. There are certain things that we did last year that we don't do this year. Like I think last year, some of the fourth down play calling, especially on fourth and short, was really questionable last year. But this year, if you look at the play calling so far, it's been magnificent in those situations. The way he's handled different situations has been magnificent. Um, Mississippi State isn't that, and I don't know what's the problem. Is Will Rogers leading that? Is holding the team back? Is it the scheme? It's the lack of a running attack. I don't know, but it's just not that impressive. If you and not that impressive.
And the thing is, the Egg Bowl is going to decide the fate because by them, Ole Miss might be having a shot to play in the SEC West to win the division and even going to the SEC championship. I know probably by then Ole Miss by loss to Alabama, but they're still on a chance. They're still it's like Ole Miss is number 3 and Mississippi State number 4 in the West, but the gap is so big. Like Ole Miss ranked number 15, 3-1, and Mississippi State at 2-3. So because it's like the comparison, and they compare even worse because like Tennessee compared to like out of state teams like Georgia, Florida, even Bama. Like Ole Miss and Mississippi State look at each other. They're in-state rivals. So
Yeah, in a state that's not that big. And then also,
yeah,
too, you got to think about that in Mississippi. You got Jackson State that's rising. You got the HBCU with Deion Sanders, and he's getting all kinds of national press. He's getting college game day to go down to Jackson this week to see them play Southern in a major HBCU game. So there's a lot of competition in the state of Mississippi right now. Mike Leach better get it together, or Mississippi State's going to fall behind.
yeah, or even start making some phone calls in Jackson, Mississippi, to be like, "Hey, Deion Sanders, maybe you want to bring that swag to the SEC team of the state of Mississippi."
If he leaves Jackson State, it will not be for Mississippi State. It'll be for somewhere else. I'm thinking maybe a team that does a tomahawk chop, but we'll see. A team that he might have been an alma mater of once upon a time.
Oh, we'll see about that. But that's it for episode 47 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, recorded on October 26th, recorded live on October 26th, 2022. I'm
The
Gus
only
Tomazeli,
podcast that talks Brazilian and American sports. And don't
the
you
only
forget it.
one, the only one, the only one. The
Gustavo
talk.
Tomazeli and Americana Sao Paulo, Brazil. Nicholas Hill and Chattanooga, Tennessee, the United States. It's been good. It's been awesome having y'all. Take care. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you on Tuesday for the episode 48. That will definitely be on a watch for who's going to be on the college football ranks.
We will see you then.
Massage with hip hop mixed up with samba.